folks. Thank you for coming along, and we're looking forward to a really interesting presentation today, all about my governance journey, which is an initiative of Volunteering Queensland. And we have with us Amanda Nixon, who is the senior manager of initiatives at Volunteering Queensland, to tell us all about what my governance journey is all about and what it means to us and how we can use it. So perhaps we'll start, Amanda, by allowing you to introduce yourself and maybe tell us something a little bit about yourself, perhaps to get us warmed up and get us started.
Thank you very much for that. So my name's Amanda Nixon. I've been working with Volunteering Queensland now for about 7 years. But just a little bit about my background. I'm actually a Central Queensland girl, so I was born and bred in Banana Shire. So I'm not too sure of how many of you are aware of Banana Shire, but born in Biloela, raised in Mara. So I'm actually the daughter of I'm coal miner's daughter. So lived there for quite some time. So I'm really CQ is in my blood. I spent a lot of time fishing and bobbing for fish with a big old, in all seriousness, I was a Huckleberry Finn kind of kid with a big old bamboo fishing rod. And I can remember bobbing for fish, lots of yellow belly in the beautiful, mighty Dawson River. So I have a really fond memory of growing up there. Spent a lot of time on farms. So my father was a National Party representative, and I grew up in a heavily unionised town. So that was a real difference, and different. I, really had different worlds: farming community and the mining community. But my background, predominantly in terms of my career, has focused on. So almost the last 20 years has focused heavily on disasters, particularly the impacts of disasters. I have worked with the Department of Communities around the human social recovery aspect. And within this organisation, within Volunteering Queensland, I look at aspects about how volunteers can support disasters in general. So, and then I roll out a whole heap of other different types of projects. So if you're ever Masters of Disasters is really my primary body of work within Volunteering Queensland.
We're in trouble, we know where to come to.
You can. But Volunteering Queensland provides a range of services. So we are the peak for volunteering, which means we provide a lot of advocacy, we work on policy. But in the back end as well, Volunteering Queensland develops a lot of services and resources for the sector to use. And I've really enjoyed that. And it's a great team. So we have our RTO, so a registered training organisation, where we provide recognised qualifications in volunteering. We have another team that delivers a lot of capability development as well. So they might provide information to everybody on volunteer management. We have other teams that are rolling out a project called Volunteer Management Activity. So there's a whole suite of resources and things that we do within the organisation. So if you ever want to find out more, give us a call and we can give you some information on that. Okay, that's exciting information about myself and the organisation. So
Amanda, I've just put up a link also to Volunteering Queensland, so folks, you can go and check the website out as well. But right now, stay with us because we want to go through a presentation. So
awesome. So
what have you got for us, Amanda?
All right. So what I'm going to do is I will turn my camera off for this part, folks, mainly because I'm going to be reading from a script. But I will go to the. Please let me know if this isn't working. Share. How's that going?
That's working beautifully. You can see your slides now. So
excellent. So I'm just going to try and turn my camera off. Stop video. Beautiful. Okay. Okay, so welcome to the presentation. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my governance journey. It is excited to be able to bring you this presentation and introduce a tool to you that may support you in your work. I also acknowledge the traditional owners on the land of which we meet today. I'm actually working from home today, which is in Springfield. So for Springfield Lakes and Ipswich area, that's the Yagara and Yurugal people. And so I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Sorry. Okay, so we're coming up to that term called governance. What we know is many volunteers serve many different organisations over their volunteer career. They take their skills they learn from one experience forward to the next. And we see volunteers play significant roles in many, many organisations at a local level. That could, range from your cricket clubs, football clubs, your CWA branches, your environmental groups, PNCs. And all of these organisations have governance frameworks that need to be applied in the services and the work that they undertake within their respective communities. Navigating a path through the topic of governance for volunteers that are serving on boards and committees has been notoriously quite difficult. Feedback that Volunteering Queensland has received as to why this has been difficult is about the sheer volume of information that's available out there, the uncertainty and reluctance in nominating for, which is generating a reluctance in people nominating for boards and committees. Without, good engagement in in learning about governance responsibilities, volunteers serving on boards and committees may make uninformed decisions, and this can be as a result of curious-minded community members, prospective volunteer board and committees members. They're normally ready to give something new a go, but are at risk of being deterred and lost to volunteering if the topic of governance looks too complex or impenetrable. There's also busy and committed current volunteer boards and committee members, and they're already battling to find time to learn more about governance while fulfilling a volunteer role on top of obligations of everyday life. When we've looked at everything, the production of more information is not going to solve the problem because there is a lot of information out there. The sheer volume of materials already available is simply, if we were to go and generate more documents, all it's going to be doing is contributing to the problem that's already out there. Rather than doing that, what we've done is developed a tool to assist people with making sense of governance. And it's about how that tool has been made accessible and useful without overwhelming people looking for that information. So the solution was developing My Governance Journey. My Governance Journey is a pathfinding tool to meet individuals where they are at in terms of experience and then assist them in taking next steps. It's based on a personal life cycle approach, and My Governance Journey breaks down an individual's experience into 5 sequential stages. And we'll go into those stages a bit more when I go onto the actual onto the page to show you how it works. But the 5 stages include before you begin, starting out, doing more, stepping up, and handing over. So My Governance Journey aims to assist with knowing what you are getting into and how that will make a community board or committee a more enjoyable experience for you. It will help you learn new skills to advance your career. It supports you in stepping up to take the role of chair, secretary or treasurer in your own community, because that is actually a rare honour. It can be daunting at first when you undertake those new challenges and those new roles. So knowing your way around governance requirements can boost your confidence and make the top jobs a whole lot easier. So with My Governance Journey, it's not designed at all to be the magic bullet. It is certainly not that. It's just to help you get you started. And I'll show you a little bit more about My Governance Journey in a moment. What I can do now, what I might do, if this is where it gets tricky, I'm going to have to go into, sorry guys, I'm going to have to open up the live demo and drag across the page. So guys, this is the My Governance Journey page. So to get into My Governance Journey, you go volunteeringqld.org.au/governance/. So I've been having a bit of a play with My Governance Journey the last couple of days because it's not something that we would regularly use in our day-to-day jobs. Because for me, I'm not a member of a board. or committee member, I would normally be the person to provide guidance and support in my regular role. So in having a play with this and seeing how it would work for me, where I found it easiest is there's actually a part where you can take a 2-minute survey. And if you're happy to, I can demonstrate how it actually works with the survey, because what it will do, before when I was talking about the 5 different steps that my governance journey takes you through, it sort of works out where you sit in your journey. And so for me, when I was doing this, if I was to put my if I was to look at this as a practitioner and what I do on a day-to-day basis, my scoring isn't too bad. I normally come in as stepping up. But if you're new in the system, if you're trying to come up a little bit new, if you're just starting to show interest in that space, you're wanting to get into boards, you're wanting to do a little bit more, then what you'll probably find is your knowledge base won't be as large, and it might take you to the before you join part. So what I'm going to do is just demonstrate how the survey works, and I'm just going to click a variety of buttons so you can see how it will work out what stage of the journey you're at. So you can do it this way, or you can just go step by step. It doesn't matter, but I did find that this was quite an interesting way to do it. All right, so this is a survey. So I'm going to say no to a few things. So let's say I'm a volunteer. So I'm going to say I haven't been a board member, that I don't really understand the role. I understand my organisation's challenges because I actually volunteer with the organisation and I get what is kind of going on. I think I understand the organisation's roles. I don't really understand the routines of the meetings that are being held within the board and the committee space. I don't really understand the financial statements that they're working with. I'm going to say no to the general meeting. I'm going to say, yes, I understand our strategic plan. No, I don't understand legal structure. I don't understand the legal requirements. Maybe I understand most of the policies and procedures. I don't really understand the risk management plan because it's not something that I've been privy to as a volunteer. So some organisations may not share that information with me. So I don't really understand that too much. I don't know anything about insolvency. I don't understand the leadership role. And no, I'm not ready to hand over because I'm actually wanting to step up. So what will happen is it comes up and it says for me, so the area that I need to be focusing on is before I join. So what I'm going to do then is what you can do is you can click in before you join and it will take you straight to the areas to get you started. And it has a whole heap of different topics there that can help me in my journey. And so what's been really great about this document is a lot of the information that's been collected and collated across the process. These are things that have been reviewed. We're not bringing in every single big piece of documentation that's available out there. What we've done is we've reviewed the most useful and we've included it in my governance journey. So just to go through those steps, if you want to, what you can actually do is, oh, sorry, I've misplaced my journey again. Jump to the board. So when it comes to before you join is about things to consider before you volunteer to serve on a management committee or board. As you begin or starting out is learning about the routines of a board or committee meetings. Doing more, it covers the most common issues you may encounter as you settle into the role of a board or committee member. Stepping up is the types of governance issues that relate to the work of the board and the committee. And handing over is about achieving a real successful transition from your role. So this is if you've decided I'm not doing this role anymore and I want to transition out. So it's about making sure that that transition from you across to those volunteers that are going to be taking over those roles is smooth and it's and it has all the information required for that next volunteer that comes in. So before I talked about the resources, so each of those resources are curated resources to help volunteers navigate the important topics. And so we do recommend that you have a little bit of a look and a play at those resources. I've had a bit of a look around. I have found it quite a good resource. There is a fair bit of reading though for you. So there's a fair bit of reading. And again, this is never meant to be the magic pill, the magic bullet. It is about helping get you started. And what we encourage people to do is have a look at it and work with your board, your management committees and your boards to see what best suits your area. Because we could certainly go through and talk to you about the more general kind of processes involved, but within each organisation or boards and committees, it's going to be very bespoke to meet your needs. So you also have to rely on each other and talk to each other about how that looks. Okay, now here's the tricky part. I've got to get back to the PowerPoint presentation. Sorry, everyone.
Okay. We're seeing the PowerPoint presentation now, Amanda.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So this was actually developed. So my governance journey was designed. It was a co-design group that supported us in the development of this tool. And there were there was an organisation we would like to thank, the co-design group and our Cox and Co collaborators. So their names are Matthew, Anna and Gail. They led this project in conjunction with Volunteering Queensland. So on the screen, you can see a list of some of our co-collaborators. So Meals on Wheels Queensland, PNC Queensland, Queensland MedShed, Queensland Country Women's Association, Queensland Land and Water Carers. Is that the correct way of? Is that the correct?
I think it might be water and land carers. But
thank you. I will make sure that is repaired.
We know what you mean.
Yeah, but we will repair that and get that fixed. CNK Queensland, Queensland Council of Social Services, and of course, I've just named the Cox and Co collaborators. And my governance journey was actually a tool that was, we managed to get this tool made because of an initiative called the Volunteer Management Activity Program. So this program is supported by the Australian government, which is particularly the arm of the Department of Social Services. The program aims for thriving volunteering that is valued, inclusive, diverse, resourced, recognised and contributes to the common good. So all state territory volunteer peak bodies have partnered with Department of Social Services to deliver the VMA program with a key focus on building the capacity of volunteer involving organisations to undertake good practice in volunteer management, together with reducing barriers to volunteering faced by identified groups, including people with a disability, First Nations people and newly arrived migrants. We also encourage you to have a look at the VMA program. There are some other opportunities that do present themselves in the VMA program, and that's particularly looking at ways to increase volunteering for those for a variety of cohorts. So there might be a program that you might be working on within your respected areas that you want to look at and adopt. So we're looking at new kind of programs that look at ways to increase participation of those groups. So please have a look. And if you've got any ideas on opportunities or what you would like to partner with, give us a call and we can now work with you on that. Okay, now I'm going to stop sharing and I just don't know how to do that. Can you please stop sharing the screen for me?
I can do that for you. Yep, no problems.
Thank you.
There we go.
And I'll turn my video back on. Any questions?
Feel free, folks, if you want to put your hand up or if you want to turn your cameras back on and wave at us or whatever you want to do if you've got questions to ask. I mean, I guess if I was to summarise what you've just showed us, Amanda, governance is all about everybody knowing what their responsibilities are and what their roles are within an organisation and having all of that documented and strategically outlined. And my experience has been that you don't really realise how much you need a good governance system until things go pear-shaped, because while everything's sailing along smoothly and everybody's happy, you don't need those systems to rely on so much. But if things start to go a little bit sideways, all of a sudden they become critically important for everybody to know where they stand and what they should be doing. Am I right in saying that?
I think you're right in saying that. I'm really interested to know what sort of the challenges are that any of you guys have come across in your roles in terms of any of the governance kind of roles that you play within your organisations. It would be great to know what the challenges that you've come across locally. I see David's got his.
Yeah, g'day Amanda, how are you? David Arthur here. I guess the thing for me is that our group became pretty moribund, and I was nominated, and the previous president said, yeah, I'm pulling the pin. I just can't do this job anymore. So I said, well, I'll give it a go. And we're just sort of bumping along, trying to work out what we're doing, and starting to, get an organisation together. So far, we've just been doing it pretty well intuitively. In other words, what I think might work. And, I see I've got at least one of my colleagues along, and a couple other people from the member group, so that's good. But we're just a long way to we're right at the start of our governance journey, as it were.
Okay, yeah. So that would certainly to have a look at the tool. That I would be looking at the tool, and I'd be looking at the first area. I would start from there. You might find that once you're collectively talking together, because you're obviously holding the role of chair, you might find that the other members might say, one of the greatest challenges is that loss of corporate information, isn't it? When you have that, if you don't have a good handover, sometimes these systems are already set up and you're not aware. And we find that just in our paid work, day-to-day paid work, that, if one significant person, while we try to file everything, I'm telling you now, the information that I have in my head is probably far greater than the information that I've written down on where things are stored. So it's really important. Sorry, that's just my boss calling during a presentation. Bear with me. Sorry about that. So certainly I would be getting everybody together and probably do that tool together. Maybe if you could put that up on a screen and map it out and go, what do we need? What are the things that we are currently doing? Are there processes in place? Do they exist? And where do we start from there?
Yeah, our group is, sort of regionally distributed, across the wide Bay Burnett. So I'm going to have to give a bit of thought to that. Maybe get a few people together at a time. Yeah,
you might be able to do it. If you're like me, though, I'm not very good at screen sharing. You might be able to do it online or something. Give it a go, though. Just maybe even have a casual conversation with people about it. It's a big task, though, I think. It's a big task. But the more information you have, the easier it will be. And, again, bite-sized chunks. You can't save the world in one day. It takes time to build it. It really does, and it's okay. It's okay.
Well, I'm looking forward to I do know one of the other people on this Zoom is Robin Jackson, and I look forward to Robin sort of leading us by the hand, as it were.
Not putting the pressure on there, David?
Oh, no. That's all right. Robin's way more competent at this sort of thing than me anyway.
Thanks, David. I'm glad you think that.
So, Robin, what's your role? Do you mind if I ask?
I'm president of Koala Action Gympie region.
Okay.
But I'm also part of the Wide Bay Burnett Environment Council. That's where David and I have been working together.
Okay.
So, I've been president of different groups for many years over the years, and I've also been secretary and treasurer at different times. So I've learned over about 50 years what I needed to do. But recently I did some training on the legislation, and I found that really, really interesting. I mean, it was just so much more intense than what I was aware. And I think that's something we don't always pick up on, because changes of legislation occur quite often without us knowing or being told about it. So how do you find out, for instance, when the Office of Fair Trading decide to update their standard constitution, unless you actually sit there and do the recommended review of constitution every 3 years? How do you find out that it's been changed? Things like that. It's a big world, the volunteering world, and trying to get good information that's up to date is not necessarily easy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
it is hard. And even for us, because it's quite a rapidly changing area, because there's always something that's happening in that space. Even for us as a peak body, sometimes we'll be having a conversation and we'll be like, oh my goodness, what does that mean? What does that mean for volunteering? What does that mean? How is it applied? So I think for you, around those, I see a question, where did you get that training on legislation, Robin? There was a question made, Jill's asked you a question. So it's about these sort of networks and how you can start to share that information, and how do you capture that? And, you know, how do you capture it, and how do you make sure that the board is starting to, or the committee are starting to go, this is important, or this is an operational matter, and the CEO, I don't think you guys have CEOs and GMs in your area. You're a volunteer-based organisations, aren't you?
Totally,
yeah. So that's a silly thing to put forward. But certainly how you as volunteer, how as volunteer committees you start to gather that information and share and distribute that to yourselves and your members so they understand what's required.
Yeah, we were very lucky that the Gympie Regional Council ran that training. It was actually called a governance workshop, and it wasn't until I actually got there that I realised it was going to be based around legislation, because she decided that is the most important thing. And it was really good session. It was brilliant.
That's excellent to hear, Robin. We've enjoyed working with Gympie Regional Council. They're a real, I'm not saying other councils aren't proactive, but Gympie Regional Council are really proactive, and we've been working a fair bit with them. So that's excellent to hear that. That's been good training.
They wouldn't survive without volunteers up here, I don't think.
No, yeah. You're right. Well, I don't think the world would survive without volunteers.
Well, it wouldn't,
Right.
definitely.
That's right. So I'm just looking, sorry, Greg.
There's a question there from Jill as well. We might get Jill to turn a microphone on, and she's been patiently waiting.
Thank you. I was just going to make a comment about challenges and ways we've overcome them. I'm Secretary of Tree Force in Cairns in Far North Queensland, and we're a tree planting, we replant the tropical rainforest. We've been around for over 30 years, and we're lucky enough to have a committee where we have members who have more than a decade of service on the committee behind them. And about a year and a half ago, we had a transition period from one coordinator who we'd had for almost 20 years to a new one. And we realised how complacent the committee had really become because of all of those people who continued to always do those things and take care of so much. And that we really had to mature as a committee and really, just re-examine what we were doing. And one of the processes we undertook, which was really helpful, was that we reviewed our strategic plan. We surveyed all our members, and we hadn't actually updated our constitution for over 30 years. And we developed a strategic plan as an organisation, and then we developed a new constitution. There weren't many significant changes, but the objectives had certainly changed in that time. And that allowed us all to really confirm our roles and to talk in detail about exactly how payments are made, how we employ people, what the terms and conditions are, to re-examine the legislation and even the wage rates, and to set up, just some new systems and processes. And it also triggered us to, step up into our old ways not being necessarily the best ways. For example, when volunteers would show up at our events, we get them to fill in a sign-in book, a physical sign-in book. And now, of course, we use a QR code and other things. But those were all those examples of processes we had that were not wrong, but gee, they were time-consuming, and they weren't necessarily current or relevant anymore. And so I think that really that strategic planning process, that reflection process, and then the revision of the strategic plan of the constitution were massive triggers for the organisation to mature and all of the governance systems we had to be revised. So I just wanted to share that because it happened, it wasn't really by design. It was one of those circumstances where we went, oh dear, I think we might need to think about this a bit harder. And no one really knew very much because all those couple of great people had just been carrying us along for so long. So yeah, that's my recommendation if you are finding yourself in that situation is take a step back and do a joint planning process. It will really help.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And it sounds like you guys have had to, it's something that's quite difficult for organisations, for volunteer involving organisations, because it's, again, volunteer based. It's a very difficult process because people are so time poor. But sometimes it's really hard to look at how you're delivering the services or carrying out your roles to modernise them. And it takes time. So did you have any objection or pushback to those changes, or you were able to get a lot of people on board?
Look, it's only a volunteer committee of like 7 people. Mm-hmm. And I'd come in as the new secretary, and we had another ordinary board member position filled by someone new. And he and I realised we had the skills to do this. So it was one of those fortuitous moments. And we really said, hey, we think we should do this. And everybody sort of went, really? Because some of the members of the committee didn't know what we were talking about. They didn't really know what a strategic planning process was, or they hadn't actually, no one could find a copy of the Constitution for ages. Like we hadn't looked at it for that long. And so it was really a case of a couple of the committee members just deciding to do that and pushing it forward. And once we'd surveyed our members and had that information, that really activated us to have that feedback and be able to say, okay, let's just do this. And it was during COVID, we ran 2-hour online workshops with the committee. And then we developed, like from that feedback, I wrote a strategic plan and the team reviewed it and so on. And then we took that to the next AGM, obviously. And from that, we updated the Constitution with the help of Qualc and just using standard templates. So the committee now, our standard committee meetings actually get called on time, and we do them in a particular way, but we have a new agenda item, which is to review our progress against our plan. Whereas we were really driven, and we still are to a large extent, like many organisations, we're driven by funding. So we apply for and receive state and federal funding to plant trees. And we're constantly tracking our milestones and our performance against those contracts. But we weren't doing anything more about us as an organisation. And so now we do both. We actually say, well, we're on track to deliver these contracts, and that's important because that's how we get the money to do what we do. But additionally, we're actually reviewing our own strategic goals and saying, are we doing those things? Like they're little changes and big changes, like acknowledgement of country every time we meet. We didn't used to do that because no one had decided it was really important. And that was an example of us being quite out of date in the way that we were thinking and operating. Morning tea was always perfect, but there were some fundamentals that, we can grow trees, we're great at that, but there were other fundamentals that we really needed to sharpen up. So it was a fortuitous thing.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Jill. I would really, I think sometimes for us, we would love to capture those stories of what you actually had to do. And I know my governance journey wasn't part. I know the tool wasn't part. Mm-hmm. Your lessons are certainly very valuable. When looking at my governance journey, and it was a very brief look, and I didn't take you into every page and, you'd have to have a look at that. Do you think that tool would be useful if that was available at the time when you were doing that? It would have helped?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it really would. And, I was thinking about the new members because we do quite often have not so much in, as president, secretary, those kind of treasurer, those roles seem to be very stable, the real true believers. But we do also have a couple of ordinary members, positions on the committee. And when new people come onto the committee, it would be fantastic to be able to refer them to something like that.
Awesome.
And, you know, give them a resource that we can say, look, you should have a look at that and actually have a formal induction, because we don't do that either. And it's made me think that would be really helpful, just to explain to that individual, you know, what they're taking on, what the organisation's aims are. This is what the Constitution says. This is what our responsibilities are. I think that would make people feel much more involved immediately. And, you know, I think they kind of feel like they want to get involved, they want to do something, they want to take responsibility, make a bigger contribution. And they come to the committee meetings, but they're not really sure what else they should be doing. That's my observation anyway. So I think that we could do that as an organisation, and this would be a fantastic tool to do that.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that, Jill. And thanks for sharing your lessons. That's fantastic. And I've written down your name, Jill. You might get a call.
That's right.
Thank you.
So
Amanda,
do you have a sense, and this is obviously going to vary a little bit between organisations, but do you have a sense how frequently we should be reviewing our governance procedures and strategies?
I can't actually provide guidance around that. I would think you should be reviewing them. For me, I think you should be reviewing them at least annually, and you should be reviewing them every time something new is coming in. I think it's an ongoing process. I don't know what others would think online about how often you review your governance procedures. I think it just depends on the structure of the committee and what your constitution, how often you're meeting. There's a whole heap of things there. I know internally for us, and we'll often say volunteers, it's a different model because you're not paid. But I know for us, even our internal, when we work and everything we do, it's an ongoing, because we've already talked about before about that. There's all these new things that are coming at us all the time, legislation and all this stuff that's changing constantly. We're always having to review. And I know within the board and committee with Volunteering Queensland, they meet regularly and they're constantly reviewing everything that occurs within our organisation. And I'd be interested to know what others would think about that, about frequency.
So the organisation that I chair, Amanda, when I started, we had a policy of reviewing our governance charter every couple of years, but we now do that on an annual basis. And we also, every time we have a new organisation or individual that comes into the partnership, they're presented with the governance charter so they can see what the roles and responsibilities of our committee and our various partners are as well. So that's kind of the way, that's where we've fallen. We're not a volunteer organisation, but we have limited funds for this sort of stuff and lots of project deliverables, as a lot of organisations do. I see Robin said at least every 3 years is what her organisation's been told. So there's obviously a little bit of variability there. Anyone else like to contribute to that discussion? All quiet? Okay. Well, there's a couple of other comments that have come up in the chat that I might pull up as well, Amanda, and perhaps get a bit of discussion happening on. So Jesse's made a few comments here. So thank you, Jesse. And I think some of them have possibly already been covered. So let me know if not, Jesse, we can come back to them. But one that jumped out at me was maintaining cybersecurity.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The cybersecurity stuff is such a hot topic at the moment, and Volunteering Queensland is certainly, even within our own organisation, we're rolling out some significant processes and policies for staff around cybersecurity, and it's definitely a pressing priority for our board. It is something that we have to work on. Volunteering Queensland, what I could do is send you some links. We know that QCOS recently had some information on, they held information session on cybersecurity. So what I could do through Andrea and Greg, I can share with them some of these links to some of these online presentations that have been held to support you. I'm not going to go into the details of that because it's not probably my strength, but it is very important, the cybersecurity stuff. And I know for us at the moment, just as a staff member, a paid member of staff, which include, we have a volunteer workforce as well, we're forced We have to do cybersecurity online training once a month. So there's a fair bit of stuff that we have to now do to do. But I don't want to say forced. It's a good thing that we're doing it, and it's certainly highlighting a few issues for us. So it's good to do that. I'll send you the information so that probably is a whole different body of work for you guys to look at and talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. And a rapidly evolving one as well, with AI coming online now and starting to flood everything.
We were looking the other day at that system. I can't remember what it's called, but you type in a topic and then it pretty well answers the question for you.
Yeah.
Like it comes up with these sentences, and it does make you wonder about what will happen. Yeah. Intense.
So a lot of these AI platforms are gathering information. So they're building their training set that they draw on, their data set they draw on. But of course, a lot of people are entering personal information. So when you go into an AI platform and you're perhaps trying to do some sort of transaction online, and this will happen more and more as AI search engines start to roll in, people are giving personal information. It just opens up a whole new level of opportunity for scammers and that sort of thing. And
yeah, we've had some phishing attacks. So we're lucky. We've been trained in phishing, but the amount of phishing emails that we received, and that we have really focused on the phishing, so everyone can identify and understand. But yeah, all that sort of stuff it's a big challenge.
It is.
Yeah.
Now I see Andrea's made a comment as well. Andrea, would you like to tell your story? You've said that you often see that people within an organisation don't really understand the roles and expect that the president's going to do everything.
Yeah, it's something that I've seen in quite a lot of the groups that over the years. And for those who don't know, in the past I was a land care coordinator and have been involved with many community groups. And there's often a reluctance to go into these roles because they see the presidents and that burnt out. And often the presidents just go in there and start doing everything and don't really realise that, they should actually be getting the secretaries to do the secretarial role. And the treasurers are usually pretty good, but often, it's like if you want a job done, the president has to do it. And so part of that leadership role is to delegate and take some of the weight off and spread the load. So just you often see it as, and it's often, I think, a big barrier for getting people onto committees and boards. That was just an observation.
And I guess it's made a lot easier when you've got documentation about what everybody's role is and people come onto a committee or a board knowing what's expected of them.
I think you have to be, and I've done this myself, I'm a bit mean, but, if people are coming onto a committee, you actually have to be pretty upfront with them and saying, well, don't just, because you get some people on some committees who are just there for the ride, and who'll come and say, oh, yeah, I want to be on the committee. But when you actually ask them to do something, they're very, very busy. And I did it once on a board I was on where I put up a chart of, a spreadsheet of some butcher's paper up, and I put 4 quarters in there and I said, not very busy, extremely busy, and basically got everybody to put their name into which category and everybody put themselves into extremely busy. And I basically just turned around and said, right, so we're all in the same boat here, but all this stuff has to be done for this group to survive. So you kind of got to be a bit pushy sometimes to say, well, what they say, if you want a job done, get a busy person. But in fact, it's about prioritising, and if you're going to be on a committee or a board, take that position seriously and don't just leave the work for everybody else. So I'm not sure whether you've got any sage advice around that, Amanda.
I think it's a challenge for all organisations. There's always going to be people that will step in and do more of the roles than what they should be doing. Just in terms of, if we go back to my governance journey, and this would be good for induction, I think particularly for people that are starting out so they understand. So within my governance journey, admittedly it is in that we've got leadership roles, the basics. So it actually talks about the different types of roles and responsibilities within a board. So it does talk, so if you go into, I've just got to find the path now. Governance, stepping up, So this is when you're getting ready to step up. So you can sort of jump forward to the topic, and it talks about the leadership roles, and it just provides basic overview. There's some great articles, but that would also help you refine and go, well, you know what, as this in this role, this is my clear role. And then, you know, as secretary, you do this work. It does help. And I think sometimes it's about the person in the role, isn't it? Sometimes people just want to do everything. But by setting that standard about it, it's a team effort here. We all make this work, but I think it's a challenge for most areas. Yeah, I have no easy. I think keeping in, you know, having clear job descriptions helps, and being on a board, it's a job. It is your role. It's a role description. Having a role description helps for each of those positions.
And Nev's made the observation that for incorporated bodies, the Office of Fair Trading has some recommendations about how frequently you should review your constitution and governance.
And what does that say? I'd like to know that.
Nev, are you going to fill us in on the details or point us to a link maybe? That's a good point. There are some, there are some documented statutory requirements out there as well for a lot of organisations.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want to talk?
So I think unless we've got any other questions, feel free, folks, to put your hand up if you have a question or type it into the chat or a comment. But I think we're probably getting towards bringing the session to a close and thanking Amanda and letting her go about her day. I think it was a really, really useful discussion, Amanda. I came away thinking, there's still a lot of work to be done for our organisation in this area, and I think I would have really enjoyed having that tool available, my governance available, when I was working on the governance plan for our organisation. So, Nev, feel free to turn on your microphone, mate, and fire us through a question or a comment.
Okay, go on. You're on.
Hi, it's Bev. Nev and Bev, nice and close.
Okay.
Office of Fair Trading, if you just go onto your Google and type in Office of Fair Trading, Queensland, whichever state you're in, and then you've got all the guidance of governance, when they hold meetings, their standards, recommended constitution, the whole box and dice. And I've found that they're very, very helpful. And then if you happen to get someone that you need to talk to, the majority of them are helpful as well.
Terrific. Yep.
Because I'm in secretary treasurer for 3 or 4 different incorporated bodies. But I think also one thing we need to remember that probably a lot of our volunteers are there to do the groundwork and don't want to be on committees.
Yes, of course.
One way we try to get other people involved and try to alleviate that problem of getting the management committee or the president to handle everything is that when members bring up an idea or suggest something that the organisation should be doing, we ask them to do some research into it and prepare maybe a proposal that they can then bring back to the organisation so that we can all discuss it from what they've researched. And usually they're interested in doing that, and they go and do it, and it shares the load.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a sound idea too, because they're coming with all the information, so you guys aren't having to go off and do all the research as well. It's about how you can bring the information to the table, and it's a good, I can bring 100 ideas to the table. They may not be well structured ideas. To force me to do the research, sometimes that will definitely push the ideas, put them to bed. So I think it's a great strategy that you've got there. That's awesome. Just out of interest, I know we've got to go. So you said that you're on a number of committees in your community. Is that correct?
Yep.
We've just got a number of interests. We're the project coordinators for Turtle Care volunteers, and but we're also interested in a few other organisations.
Wow.
That aren't conservation oriented.
Wow. And are you in a small community? Sorry, Nev?
Sunny Coast.
Okay. All right.
We live on the Sunshine Coast. Our project with the turtles is in central Queensland, up near Agnes Water.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, it doesn't appear that we've got any more questions to ask Amanda, but I'm sure that when we go away and think about all this stuff, some questions will arise. We have shared the link to go and find Volunteering Queensland. So feel free to go and check that out, of course. I guess we'll think about signing off, but I'd encourage everyone that does go and have a look at the My Governance platform, if you wouldn't mind to perhaps provide some feedback to Amanda. I'm sure she'd be happy to hear any thoughts, observations, you know, what you find works really well, what you find doesn't work so well, so that they can fine tune that system. So please provide some feedback, because it's always helpful to know how the users are finding the system that you put together. So Amanda, thank you so much for coming along. It's been a really interesting chat, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of the groups that are here today out, and also those that are watching the replay, which of course will go up on the QWalk website in due course. So for those that couldn't be here for the live session, at least they can get the information, they can get the links, and they can go and check it all out for themselves. But thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. It's lovely to talk to you all and learn a little bit more about what's happening for you. Thank you. And please do give us a call. We are there to talk some of these things through. So please give us a chat. Okay,
you,
lovely.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, folks.
Bye.
Bye.